And now back to this Mos Eisley case full of painted West End Games Star Wars role-playing miniatures. When we left off at the end of the previous installment, we were talking about R2 and 3PO. They came in a box set entitled Heroes of the Rebellion originally, but they were also later available in a 3-pack with Luke called simply Heroes 1. The only problem was, every time you wanted another astromech to customize or another protocol droid to customize, you wound up with another very specific Luke Skywalker in the farm boy outfit with a lightsaber hilt hanging off his belt, holding a stormtrooper rifle. But unless I'm just overlooking something, the only times in the movies that he carries a stormtrooper E11, he's wearing a white stormtrooper belt, because that's after they came out of the trash compactor and he took off the stormtrooper armor. In the later A New Hope box set, they introduced a second Luke, specifically called Luke on Tatooine. He's in the pose like he's sitting there watching the sun's down, but he's got the lightsaber hilt on his belt and he's holding his macro binoculars. So their approach might have been a montage style rather than strictly scene specific. And as you can see, I painted several figures to look just like their Kenner counterparts. Ben, Greedo, Hammerhead, Jawa, Death Star Droid, R5-D4 Power Droid. And as I alluded to earlier, I did several versions of Power Droid, including the Grey Gonk played by Jack Purvis, as detailed in a recent video of mine. The Gonk was also available in a very useful 3-pack called Droids 1, which also included an R5 unit and the Death Star Droid. So having extra R5s allowed me to make the yellow R5 and the white R2 from the streets of Mos Eisley. Having an extra Death Star droid allowed me to make a miniature version of my custom Bollocks figure from the Brian Daley Han Solo novels. Another figure matched to one of my Kenner customs, specifically one seen in Whoever Dies with Most Toys Wins, was this orange-suited Hammerhead, or Ithorian as West End called him. Note that the staff of the Hammerhead on the right is broken very close to the base. It's going to be a tricky thing of bending the metal, adding the glue, bending the metal back without making the paint flake off, so for now I'm just leaving it. Hey, wait, that's that Hammerhead. There's those other guys. What was that connection between them that you teased us about 2 videos ago, Alex? Okay. These guys were all characters designed by Ron Cobb. A small fraction of his design work for films includes the Nostromo from Alien, the DeLorean from Back to the Future, the Gunstar, the Star Car, all of the aliens, even the video game cabinet from The Last Starfighter. And when James Cameron asked him to design a diving helmet for The Abyss, where the actors' faces could be seen actually underwater, Ron Cobb came up with a clever design of a plus sign made of plexiglass bent into 4 tabs that not only allowed them to be seen from every angle, but so impressed the company hired to make the gear practical that they asked could they have the design to actually market in the real world. Purchased at Bookland Downtown, this is my personal copy of The Art of Star Wars that I've owned since 1978 or 1979, somewhere in that ballpark. The pages are all falling out of it, so I didn't mind pulling 2 of the pages out and laying them down flat to take this photo for you. On the right side, you will see 5 Cantina aliens that Ron Cobb designed. We know that his design for the Ithorian, or Miriam Hammerhead, made it into the movie. His design for the Gotal made it into the movie. His design for the Duros made it into the movie. And this guy didn't make it into the movies, but was used in a C-3PO's breakfast cereal commercial sometime in the 80s. So the only one of these designs that was never made dimensionally for a film was this plant creature, now known as the Revwian. And I honestly can't think of him ever being released in merchandise other than as a West End Games role-playing miniature, first appearing in the set Rebel Characters, where he was called Alien Student of the Force, later repackaged in a 3-pack with Hammerhead and Nyan Nun, entitled Aliens of the Galaxy 1. But let's look at this little detail, this device strapped around his waist that he's holding in one of his tendrils. That's not from the Ron Cobb drawing. What's that all about? Well, if sculptors Bob and Julie were making the deep-cut reference that I think they are, it's brilliant and elegant in its simplicity. What you have to bear in mind is the historical context. When West End Games was fleshing out an entire galaxy just 10 years after the first Star Wars film had come out, there really wasn't that much expanded universe stuff out there. Off the top of my head, I think there were only 7 non-movie novelization books out there. You had Splinter the Mind's Eye, you had Brian Daley's Han Solo trilogy, and you had L. Neil Smith's Lando Calrissian trilogy. I think there's a strong chance that Bob and Julie must have read 1983's Lando Calrissian and the Mind Harp of Sharu, because there's a scene where Lando is on an asteroid gambling with several other players, one of whom is a sentient plant who is communicating through an electronic synthesizer fastened to its knobbly stem. Tell me that's not exactly what they had in mind when they sculpted this guy. They took one text description of a vegetable sentient and one visual of a vegetable sentient, and they married the two together. And Lando calls the plant's name as Phil, no doubt short for chlorophyll. Well, I thought this was simply hilarious, and I gave my role-playing miniature the Irish-sounding name Philodendron. Okay, Alex, so you've explained about the Ron Cobb connection, but what was that thing you said about carnivorous plant connection? Well, here in Ron Cobb's own handwriting, we can see that its diet is mainly insect-like creatures. It's a Venus flytrap. Now, the whole reason that I have finally dug out 4 cases worth of miniatures and begun photographing them was a chance conversation on Facebook with my friend Anna. Anna owns some 300 plus houseplants, and every day on Facebook, she posts a new video welcoming you into her home, which she calls Plantasia. And April 8th, she posted about a philodendron. So in the comments, I talked about my role-playing miniature, Philodendron, and she said she really wanted to see it. And that was all the impetus I needed to haul out 4 cases and begin taking photographs. So the world not only has Anna to thank for getting me into directing when she printed out a private email and read it at a board meeting, and they said, that's the guy we want directing for us, but now she's been the motivating force behind this video series. How do I know Anna? Well, in 1989, I did my very first play. Anna was the lead. She was playing Audrey in a production of Little Shop of Horrors. And 2 days before we opened, I took over the voice of the plant. I was the Audrey too, a carnivorous, sentient vegetable. Feed me! So do you think there's a possibility that the mean green mother from outer space could be related distantly to an insectivorous ambulatory plant that hangs out at the Mos Eisley Cantina in a galaxy far, far away? You know, he doesn't come from the Black Lagoon. He's from past the stars and beyond the moon. Thank you for watching.